Welcome to our In Focus discussion tonight on the debate on banning fireworks. As our state faces severe drought and firefighters predicting this could be one of the worst fire seasons on record, one question that's emerged is, should we ban fireworks this year? And this subject has been difficult for Utahns to understand because they don't know where to turn their voice to regarding their concerns, and they're receiving conflicting information. So is it their city council member or their state representative? And do local municipalities have the legal authority to enact an all-out ban? So tonight we aim to get to the bottom of it. Kicking off our discussion tonight live in studio is Zach Robinson, council member for the city of Sandy, and via Zoom, Senator Todd Weiler of Woods Cross. And thank you both for being here tonight. Senator Weiler, we'll start with you. You encourage Utahns to reach out to their mayors and city councils if they want fireworks banned in their community. Why shouldn't this be something that they first voice to their state representatives?
Yeah, so the legislature decided years ago, this isn't new for 2021, that the local officials were in the best position to decide which parts, if any of their cities should be restricted. I'm looking at a map of Sandy City right now. Everything east of 1300 East is restricted. Everything west of 300 West is restricted. And then looks like a part of the middle of the city through Dimpledale. And so I guess I don't understand where Councilmember Robinson's coming from. So Sandy City's gone through the process. They've designed their maps, and I guess the complaint is that they can't ban every square inch, but not all parcels are equal. If I had fireworks at my house right now where I'm at, I might start some 2-inch grass on fire. I could put that out with my foot. And so the regulations are there so we don't start these 10,000 acre forest fires.
Okay, I see. So where you're coming from is you don't think that we need to ban fireworks on every square inch within city limits. Is that correct?
Well, I think that if the cities want to do that, I think we've empowered them to do that because we've been in a drought for 2 of the past 5 years. Governor Herbert declared a drought declaration in 2018, and Governor Cox did one this year. And so that would, I think, give the city the authority to put the entire city under as an environmental hazardous condition. Most of the cities are being more strategic than that. But if the only complaint is it's hard for us to ban every square inch of the city for fireworks, that's probably a legitimate complaint. But if the complaint is we can't ban fireworks where they're most hazardous, I would say that's disingenuous.
Zach, let's hear from you. You stated online that Senator Weiler was incorrect in this aspect. So could you explain why cities are unable to do an all-out ban on fireworks?
Absolutely, and thank you, Senator, for highlighting what we've done in Sandy. I do appreciate that. We have been counseled by our legal counsel in the city that we cannot do an all-out ban for Sandy City. This is something that we're continuing to hear from our residents about. This is what they want. And because the way that the state code is drafted, we're unable to actually do that. So we can't go, as a local policymaker, I can't go any further, so to speak, than what the state code allows, meaning I can't draft an ordinance or a resolution at a local level that supersedes what the state code has already put out there. And so the way that our legal counsel in Sandy City is reading the state code, we cannot do an all-out ban, and that is what our residents want. We have survey data that shows 95% of residents in Sandy want, in conditions like what we have right now, they want additional restrictions, and we're hearing from residents they want an all-out ban, and we just can't do it.
But Zach, what about Salt Lake City that just enacted a ban on Tuesday, or cities like Ogden, Eagle Mountain, Holiday, and Park City?
Yeah, I can't speak to where those cities and their legal counsels are coming from and how they're interpreting the code, but I actually think this highlights the state code and the complexity there. Cities are looking at this state code differently, and they're interpreting it differently, and that is what's causing the confusion out there. And so I hope, and I actually love what Senator Weiler said in the tease coming into the show here was for in the future, we should look at this. And I do hope that if the state legislature does look at this fireworks code, that they do seek feedback from local policymakers so we can get a code that works for everybody. The one size fits all right now is not working, and hopefully there can be some flexibility built in. So those of us that are at a true local level can enact codes and pass ordinances in our city to keep our city safe.
Thank you for that. Senator Weiler, Utah House Democrats issued a statement calling for a special session to grant local control over fireworks in extreme drought conditions. Speaker Brad Wilson said he does not believe it's not necessary to do so. What do you think about that, and do you agree?
Well, it's not easy being a Democrat in Utah, and I think they take an opportunity to do a little bit of grandstanding when they can. Ironically, the Senate the Senate Democrats do not agree. They believe that this should be a local decision. So it's just the House Democrats. I think you said that accurately. But I do think this is a little bit of a grandstanding. They're trying to get attention, and they're trying to convince people that they should be voting with their party instead of the Republican Party. But when did we give up on local control? And what is this fascination that everybody in the state has to be banned? I mean, if I'm in Bear Lake and I'm shooting my fireworks over the lake, that's a little different than being in, Mill Creek and shooting them over a canyon, right? And so this idea that we all have to be treated equally, it doesn't comport with the fact that not all cities and towns are the same. And so I do believe that this is properly vested with local officials.
Zach, what about you? What are your thoughts about the legislature's decision to not hold a special session on this subject?
At a local level, it would have been nice to have that special session. So there could have been potential changes for the code so we can implement different restrictions at a local level. So I would have supported it. But again, I have to go back to my point. I really feel like in the next general session, I hope that this code is looked at and just please seek some feedback from us at a local level and really see if we can find a balance here. I agree with you, what you just said there, Senator. You're right, not everything is the same, not everything applies, and the way that this state code is drafted, it does have a one-size-fits-all feel, so hopefully that can get addressed in the next legislative session. I
was hoping to get the final words, but we have to wrap here. Basically, to our viewers, reach out to your local officials, especially if you're being represented by Zach Robinson or Senator Todd Weiler, if you'd like to hear more from them. Tonight, we've been hearing from Zach Robinson, council member for the city of Sandy, and Senator Todd Weiler of Woods Cross. Thank you both for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us for our second In Focus discussion tonight on the debate on banning fireworks. Joining our conversation next live via Zoom is Coy Porter. He is the Utah State Fire Marshal. And Coy, we appreciate you being here tonight and joining our conversation with your expertise. Let's dive straight into the state statute on what local municipalities are allowed to do when it comes to restricting and prohibiting fireworks. There's been so much confusion for Utahns because they are getting conflicting information. So could you break this down for us?
Sure, Rosie, and thanks. And I appreciate Senator Weiler and Zach Robinson in their comments earlier. I think part of the problem where we had confusion is the actual statutes regulating fireworks are not just in the Fireworks Act in Title 53. They're also in the Fire Code in 15A, and there's a little proviso in the municipal and county statute in Title 11. And 1138, let me just read it quickly. A county, city, town, or metro township may not adopt an ordinance or regulation in conflict with sections 53 at 7, 220 through 225, and that is the actual Fireworks Act. So I recognize that they go to the Fireworks Act, and we're really focusing on the ability to prohibit the discharge of certain areas with hazardous environmental conditions. And obviously, with water shortages, posted fire dangers, hot temperatures, fuel moistures, early fuel growth that has now dried up and died. So, I think everyone understands the real concern here. It's just that the small nuances in the statutes say that they may do certain things, and they talk about a restriction or prohibit in certain areas that meet those either existing or historical hazardous environmental condition. They can't control that. So they can prohibit, but in the other areas it talks about that they may they may close a defined area. And so I get it. There's a lot of confusion about the cities and whether or not they have a ability. There's really no place in this code that really specifically says prohibit all the areas except that authority given to the state forester to close all state lands and the school trust lands and unincorporated, undeveloped private land. So that's very well defined in Title 65A, but it's not as clear in the other areas. And there are multiple areas where.
Oh, Coy, we lost you for a little bit there. Let's see if we can get you back. Oh no, Coy, I think you're frozen.
Found in the statute, it's not just one.
Okay, we can hear you now. Okay, keep going.
Okay, all right. So anyway, the main thing here is just there's a lot of different areas in different titles, and we need to probably just review that and see if we can make that more clear.
Now, Coy, we've got at least 5 cities, including Salt Lake City, that have enacted a ban on fireworks. So how does that work with what is stated in Utah statute?
That's a good question. I think really Salt Lake City needs to answer that. I have communicated. We did provide copies of the comprehensive list of the statutes, but obviously they are a legislative body. They chose that decision. I did pose a question to them stating somewhat like Senator Weiler said, I just said, you're telling me that there's absolutely no place in your city that anyone can shoot fireworks that doesn't meet an environmental hazardous condition. So I can't speak for them, but all I could do is provide them the statutes.
Coy, there seems to be confusion between the terms restriction and ban. Real quickly, could you clarify what the difference is?
So, and that's probably what has created a lot of the confusion, because it says that the cities, the municipalities, the legislative bodies of those, and metro townships are included in that they may prohibit the use of these things, but we keep talking about restricted areas versus banning. And so I think there is some additional confusion in the way the law states it versus how people interpret that. So I think in some cases, restriction, in my mind, goes back to certain areas that they have definitely closed. They provided a description of those areas or specific landmarks like 1300 East, nothing east for Sandy, Draper, and I think Cottonwood Heights falls into that area. And typically they also provide a map. So we're trying to make sure that the public understands those are restricted areas. You could say those areas are banned, but does that mean the entire rest of the city meets those same environmentally hazardous conditions? That's why the legislative body needs to take effect there in their city.
Coy, about 30 seconds left. Real quick, I want to squeeze in this question. At the end of the day, Utahns want to know, if they want a complete all-out ban on fireworks in the area where they live, who do they voice their concerns to? Their city council or their state representative?
Well, certainly they can do both. I think the best route is to revisit a couple of these statutes and try to make that language more clear. That would be probably the best help overall from the legislature to ensure that the municipalities understand and everyone's on the same page.
All right, you've been hearing from Coy Porter, Utah State Fire Marshal. And Coy, thank you so much for helping us better understand the state statute on fireworks. We appreciate you being a part of this conversation.
Thanks.
We'll be right back. Welcome to our third and final In Focus discussion tonight on the debate on banning fireworks. Rounding out our conversation tonight live in studio is Robert Gerke, news columnist for the Salt Lake Tribune. And Robert, it's a pleasure to have you. Welcome back to the show. How have you been thinking about the subject of fireworks as the debate over this topic has unfolded over the past few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have illustrated tonight the complexity of this issue. It's on everybody's mind, obviously, because we've had such a dry year, and excluding the rain that we got today. But you know, it's on everybody's mind. Everybody's talking about it, but everybody's really confused about it because, as Coy illustrated, the law is incredibly complex. There's a lot of nuance to it, and cities would like to do more. Some cities would. Mill Creek would, for example. And you know, but then people see Salt Lake City, like you mentioned. Ogden tonight issued a ban. South Salt Lake has issued a ban. So you know, there's all this confusion that people are having, and we're just trying to, you know, do the best we can to explain it to them, I think.
You've been listening in on our last 2 segments with our 3 previous guests. We'd like to hear your reaction and interpretation to it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple competing tensions here. The legislature loves to talk about all the control the local governments have, but they've also limited that control. You know, Todd talked about how locals can, you know, prohibit fireworks in certain areas, but they can only prohibit fireworks in the mountainous areas, the forested areas, the dry grasslands, and a buffer to implement that. And so that kind of it shows where these locals are trying to figure out exactly what that means. You've got, you know, in Sandy, for example, they figured that is east of 13th East. In Salt Lake, it's the entire city. The city seems to be hinging on this dry grassland concept, but it comes down to what the fire chief in that municipality, what the city council, what the mayor can come to an agreement on and sign off on. And so that means that sometimes the public isn't going to be satisfied because their city isn't going as far as they'd like them to. You know, it's complex, and I think that, you know, the fire marshal earlier raised a really good point that this is something that maybe we need a little bit more clarity to. If you know, going into next year. But this year, as Todd mentioned, this year, if you want to make an impact, you've got to contact your local authorities. And if they aren't prohibiting it enough, if they aren't restrictive enough, if you think it's still unsafe, then they can maybe adjust that some, if not for the 4th, then for the 24th.
Now, Governor Cox and Utah House Democrats said that they want more done to implement additional fireworks restrictions this year, but the state legislature isn't interested in holding a special session. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this year the notion of a special session is sort of off the table. I think eventually they're going to have to come to terms with it. If it's in January, that's probably the most likely outcome. We're kind of dealing with the rules of the game as they exist right now. I think part of it depends on how this season goes. If we have a major fire in one of these areas, or in an area that's not banned, or if we have a major fire in an area that is banned. I mean, one of the things that, you know, I know the people in Draper, for example, are very keenly aware of, is that they had a big fire on the hillside last year that was set by fireworks right around this time of year. And it threatened homes. It almost burned over the ridgeline down into Utah County. I mean, they're very astutely aware of this. And so I think part of the future of this statute is going to depend on how this year goes. I mean, this year is, and the governor has made this point again and again, this year is a historically bad year. This is not a year that we should be doing fireworks. But, you know, there's this tension between whether they're legal, whether they're not legal, people having the right to do things, big government telling you what to do, people don't like that. And so these are issues that are going to have to play out after this fireworks season, I think, is over.
Robert, could these cities that have banned fireworks face legal challenges in the future? And if so, what would be the basis for these potential lawsuits?
Well, I mean, I know there's been some discussion about that among the fireworks companies. They invest all year. They get their licenses lined up. They get their stands lined up. They hire people, they buy the fireworks, have them imported. So they're putting a lot of money and time into this. And then to have that sort of, in a way, pulled out from under them by bans on fireworks, they aren't happy about it, certainly. There could be a legal challenge. There could be a legal challenge saying, well, Salt Lake didn't craft their restrictions in accordance with the state law, as I mentioned, the mountains, forest, dry grassland, and that buffer. If they figure that's arbitrary, the way the city banned them completely, then yeah, I think there's a good possibility that they might try to challenge that in court. You know, and also I think if somebody's charged under that law with illegally setting fireworks or starting a fire in a prohibited area, then they might challenge that as being an arbitrary and contrary to the law, the way the legislature's restricted it. We'll have to see how that goes, and we'll have to see. And also, again, keep in mind, again, this is July 4th is one thing, July 24th is another thing, and a lot can happen between the two. And so, you know, we'll have to see how the next few weeks play out, I think.
There could be some fireworks happening figuratively.
Well said. Well said.
Right?
Yep, well said.
Robert, we have 30 seconds left. I really want to ask you this question. Why are fireworks such a contentious subject in our state?
I mean, I think in normal years, even in normal years, I'm a dog owner. My dogs don't like them. And I think there are people who don't like fireworks, period. They don't like the smoke it creates. They don't like the noise. And then there are people who just love them. They think it's part of our, you know, part of our American celebration. And so people are very passionate about it on both sides. And then this year you throw in the real severe risk of fire in a drought year, in a historic drought year. And I think that sort of amplifies everything. I also think COVID and government telling people what to do and what not to do is sort of put us all on a little bit on edge. You know, we kind of missed July 4th last year. This is our first year to get it out of the way, and now we're having to deal with these debates. Well
said. You've been hearing from Robert Gerke, news columnist for the Salt Lake Tribune. And Robert, thank you so much for being here tonight. We enjoyed hearing about your thoughts and analysis on this subject.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
We'll be right back.